My married name is Cynthia Renee Gillishammer. Cynthia Renee Gillishammer.
And what would you like to work on, Cindy?
I would like to work on some healing. I listened to Guy's reading.
Hmm?
I mean, it validated a lot of my fears.
I know what you mean.
I mean, I've been real fear-based lately.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of stress at work, but, I've kind of taken care of some of that. But I've questioned a lot about my health because I've been just so lethargic and almost depressed and just way too much stuff coming at me. And I'm worried about where his mother gets me. So those are some, my health and his mother.
Let's work on his mother. His mother's pretty intense. She can affect your health too. So let's get her out and then look at the health issue and see what's left. Because she's, every being has a sacred self, but some of us consciously choose to access it and some don't. And she's a very controlling woman. So would you say for me your current name and then her full name just one time each so I can look at the energy between the two of you?
Okay. Cynthia Renee Gillishammer. Loretta Marie Gillishammer.
Okay. Well, to begin with, there's this very large cord. It's hard to even exactly call it a cord. Do you know what psychic cords are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's almost hard to call that a cord. It almost looks like a wedge. I mean, it's I see it as being in your, just slight, the chakras?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's very slightly above the second chakra, but and nowhere near as high as the third. So it's kind of between the second and third chakras. And the image I get was that that when it would be coming in, it would be almost like you'd be bending double, and maybe I would think it might affect your female cycles, or your certainly your intestines.
Yeah, the whole works.
Yeah.
It's almost like...
It looks like it would make you irregular in both. It would put so much fear and contraction in your body that you'd hold on in both areas. And then when things come loose, they spring loose and then tighten up again, And God, it's real threatening feeling. And there's a sense of okay, what it looks like also, and you can tell me if this is consciously true or not, it looks energetically like there have been, you and Guy is your husband's name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have been really both wanting and trying to find ways of deepening some of the intimacy in your relationship. It looks like the sexual arena has been affected, and that there's a desire on both of your parts to take the sexual to a more intimate space. And it looks like what's happened in the wanting to do that is that your mother-in-law has just whacked you really hard in your second chakra. It's almost like getting a fist right underneath your belly button, saying, you take one step further and you've had it. It's like you've gone further than I wanted to allow you in the first place, but you go any further and then I'll get serious, It's like a threat, but it's already a harming. And the energy, and didn't we work some on his sexual stuff too?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't remember much of what happens in trance, but it'd be hard to imagine that we wouldn't have seeing your own, because it's like it would put fear in you of opening up sexually, you know? And it doesn't really look it looks like two things, and you might want to play this part of the tape for Guy, because I think it would be good information for him, too. Because sometimes, you know, when you're looking at the other person, you see things about someone that you don't see in their own space, you know? And what I'm seeing is that it looks like one of the ways she affects him is by trying to make him feel kind of dependent, like he won't be competent on his own. And she's hit him with some of these pictures, and they're affecting him on a second chakra level. And then she hits you to make you shut down. And then in the wanting him to help you open, it's like him being afraid of not being able to perform, you know? Like fears of impotency, fears of performance anxiety stuff, and feelings of not good enough. And for Guy, some of it has to do with some of the issues related to his relationship with his mother, of fears of being fully responsible in any way for a woman feeling satisfied and feeling like it's impossible for him to ever be good enough to fully satisfy. And so the mother puts energy in there to kind of validate that even stronger. And she has a lot of resentment in the sexual arena herself. And then, so that energy is coming from him, and then she hits you and makes you go into this fear of opening up sexually. And between the two of them, it makes it really hard for you two to find a meeting place that's very satisfactory. Or if you do, somehow it's going to end prematurely, you know? Or, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me see if, I wanted to try and explain the full dynamic so you'd get an understanding of what's going on. And then I want to get her cleaned out and see what in your space allowed her to do this. Like, usually we have some kind of belief system of our own or something. We're not by nature just victims, you know, and it can be through unawareness, or sometimes we choose by not choosing. You know, like if you consciously don't know how to protect your space, sometimes stuff just gets in, but usually there has to be some issue in you that draws it to you.
Sometimes, in the beginning of the relationship before we were married, I was open to her, you know, because I'm a sexual abuse victim.
Makes sense.
It's like she just, I don't trust her. I don't tell her anything anymore because she uses it. And I have been very irregular.
Yeah.
It's almost like I have an ulcer or something.
Yeah. Well, I wish we were closer together. What I'd really like to do with you right now is an alchemical hypnotherapy session. And I'd like to get your space cleaned up and then do a regression piece with you. Because my sense is that there's several lifetimes that you're holding some emotion from that would be good for you to release. I don't know if you have anyone around who does work like that or not.
Not in Minneapolis would be the closest.
Yeah. Okay, let me see. I'm having some trouble getting her cleaned out. It's like almost like a rubber band that bounces back. So there's got to be some kind of an agreement that you have in there. Let me just see what that is. Say both names again for me.
Cynthia Renee Gillishammer. Loretta Marie Gillishammer.
Actually, it has loosened considerably, but let me just see. Okay, here's what the contract is. She kind of looks like psychically appealed to you from a standpoint of, my son is the only male I've ever had to validate me as a female, to make me feel needed. And you can't take that away from me. So it looks like that, you know, fairly early on in the relationship that you made a contract with her, something to that effect. And it looks like the contract got broken. I don't know if it got broken directly or indirectly time of our last reading. But it looks like somehow it's come back in, and it appears that it's happened through like meeting her when you're asleep out on the astral planes, and her kind of doing an intimidation kind of mixed with self-pity thing, and trying to get you to feel sorry for her, and to make you feel like if you took her son away from her completely, that she wouldn't have anything left to live for. And didn't she have something with him about that?
Yeah.
Okay. It's really funny because I don't remember readings, but every now and then I'll say something that's like a deja vu.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wait a minute, it seems like I remember something
about the exact same thing.
So what it is that she's hit you with a guilt contract, that if you open up a level of intimacy where he starts to look toward you more than her, or feel you as more of a nurturing influence than she's been, that he'll end up turning away from her and not needing her anymore, and if her son doesn't need her, she won't have a reason to live. So you've kind of like made a psychic contract with her that you'll never replace her on that level. That you'll keep things at a certain level so that he'll always be dependent on her. So what I'd like you to do is close your eyes for a moment and just imagine a legal document that says contract at the top and your name and your mother-in-law's name at the bottom. And just imagine that this is the contract that says what we've just been talking about, you'll never allow yourself to become so important to him that he'll stop needing her. And what she's really pissed about right now, she feels like that's almost happened completely, And she's kind of doing like almost what I'd call a last-ditch effort, to reclaim. And so if you want to void that contract and then tear it up, and I would use a violet flame on it to burn it because it's pretty intense. There's also something in there, and I'm not quite sure from the looks of it. It's an energy pattern, not more than it is pictures. And it's again in your second chakra, but what it seems to have to do with is some kind of a big, guilt trip. It's almost like the Scarlet Letter story, where the woman gets branded as a slut and the A carved on her chest and that kind of thing. It's an issue around guy marrying you. I'm not sure if it's in this life or another lifetime, because of you being pregnant or thinking you were pregnant. Now, is that this lifetime? Okay, then it must be a past life. I just didn't want to go through the past life check-in process till I found out for sure, because the pictures are so present time looking. And it's kind of like, it's like the pictures are saying he wouldn't have married you if he didn't feel guilty on that level, and responsible. Let me just see where this comes from. Okay, it is past life. Okay, the reason it's a little confusing, too, is it's in the form of a programming that's in your second chakra that she's put there. And it's in your second chakra, your heart chakra, and your third eye. It affects your sense of self-worth, your feeling self-worth as a female, feeling self-worth even as a soul on the heart level, and then self-image in the third eye. And it's what she's done. She's gone through like past lifetimes when the two of you have been together and there was something a little off somewhere along the way. And it looks like to me like there were 3 different lifetimes where there were like illegitimate pregnancies that forced a marriage prematurely, and like where you never really knew if he wanted you. And you actually had an agreement with him to come together in this lifetime from a different place so that you'd know he wanted you for you. You know? Well, what she did was put this programming in there to kind of put all those doubts in your subconscious again. You know? And so anyway, what I need to do is just clear those programming out. I don't get a sense that you need to, like, labor through all those past lives or even know all the details of them or anything. It's more like she just says, okay, here's a weak link, and here's a weak link, and here's a weak link, and I'll just put these in there and, you know, stir up some confusion and self-doubt again. And what it does is it interferes with your bonding. It puts your bonding on a sexual level out of present time in the way it was in another lifetime, even though your conscious mind and your heart are in a whole different place in this lifetime. Do you know what I mean by that? Okay. Good. The picture you put in your third chakra, which is the seat of self-esteem, is, it's an ugly one. That one is just saying that he married you because he felt sorry for you, which is really weird. I'll say this, your thing about keeping things from her is really good. Because she can take a little tiny bit of knowing where you're vulnerable and use it to the max. And, I mean, it's like that, knowing that you feel some of those issues, you know, like maybe being afraid that if you let all your emotions out that somebody would feel sorry for you. It's like she just hit you right in your stomach with that, literally. Your mother's name for me?
My mother?
Mm-hmm.
Doris Jane.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at now. It looks like the programming that came in from your mother-in-law kind of piggybacked on some of your mother's programming around her terror of things like illegitimate pregnancy and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like she was in a panic about it, you know?
My mother?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like the programming and the pictures she put in your space about it were like it's just about the worst thing that could ever happen to a woman.
And I do have a daughter.
Uh-huh. Was she out of wedlock?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
5 years old.
Mm. Well, see, that just gave them some ammunition. I mean, gave your mother-in-law, too, some ammunition to get in there on. Mm-hmm. I mean, with the stuff from your mother about that, and then hers on top of it, it's just like sexually it would make you like shut down in shame. You know, if you had, unless your self-esteem was so intact, but then if it was so intact, they wouldn't have been able to get these programming pictures in there in the first place anyway. You know, so have you done any work around the shame about having your daughter illegitimately? I mean, I hate to even use that term. It's just a language, you know, because I don't see it that way. I mean, back in the days of the goddess, there was no such thing as marriage, you know.
I did some work with a therapist, and then I had, it's really hard to explain. I just had a really eye-opening dream I mean, I dreamed so wild and vivid that, and it was about my higher power, and he was playing with my daughter, and he needed to let me know that she was very much a part of him, and have no shame. And then he opened up these two doors, and they were like an old Victorian library. It was just huge, and he said, "It's all yours."
Oh, he was showing you your Akashic records.
Oh, it was beautiful. I woke up with tears in my eyes.
That's beautiful. Well, good, then you've got something new. Because sometimes when you take things out like this, people go through a lot of emotional stuff, almost like reliving it, you know. But if you've got that to come in and replace it, it'll probably make it a much easier transition as I get these pictures cleaned out there. It's like it's an area, your second chakra is an area where you've held a lot of shame and humiliation.
And which one is that?
That's the second, the sexual chakra.
Okay, yeah, oh yeah.
The one beneath the navel, you know. That's where I've been doing all this work, except for some of the programming went up into the higher chakras too, but it originated in the second. And this is the stuff that gave your mother-in-law, I keep wanting to say your stepmother, I think she has been a few times. She's being shown like 4 times, okay. She's been a stepmother 4 times in other lives. Boy, oof. As soon as I said that, the pictures just jumped out, right out of your right side. I mean, it's really like the Cinderella story. It's just, I mean, I don't see the prince the prince coming to rescue you, but I definitely see that dynamic, you with her in a past life of where, looks like when you were about 11 years old, and it's interesting, it hit just at puberty age, that she came in and married your father, who had been widowed for about, looks like about 3 years. Looks like your mother had died when you were 8 years old. And she came in and married your father, and just, I mean, that's like treated you like a slave, and basically hated you for being his child by another woman. And those pictures are also really strong in your space. It's like, it's kind of like you and she have issues around her feeling second best and then punishing you for it, so you'll be the one that feels second best, you know? So it's like in this lifetime, it has to do with you making her, quote unquote, I mean, it's her reaction. You're not doing it to her at all. It's like you being in the picture, kind of, the way she reacts to that is by feeling second best where her son's concerned. And in this other lifetime, she felt second best because you were from the first wife. You weren't her child, you know? Made her feel, it was like a constant reminder she wasn't the first. And that's something she can't stand. She needs to be number one. You know? It's like it's like a real, I don't know, do you know much about astrology? It's like a very low level on the Aries, you know, that total self-centered, dominant, controlling Aries energy. And any sign in its higher aspect has positive qualities when those things are transformed, but she's like a totally untransformed young soul Aries that just me, you know, with a little Scorpio somewhere to make her have a sting, you know. Huh. What is her sign, by the way?
You know, I don't know. I can't remember. I was just trying to think of what she was.
Well, what I'm doing right now is, with that past life picture shot out, what I start seeing is just all this pain programming in your space. And I'm just being guided to take all that out. It's like pain pictures that you brought in with you from other lifetimes and that other people have put into your space based on other lifetime shame and pain. And, you know, you really came in to work a lot of that out this time. It's like you're replaying a lot of stuff from other lifetimes to try and heal it and get it right this time, so to speak, you know?
And sometimes I feel that, and I just feel crazy.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Well, see, part of it is that there's an aspect of you that does it in a very reactionary way, that does it from a place of, God, if I don't get this cleared out, it's going going to happen over and over again. There's a desperation in it in some levels, and that's the part that really needs to be kind of like addressed. And it's like if I had you here, what I'd want to do would be an alchemical hypnotherapy session on you to deal with past life shame and fear patterns, and especially around relationship. And I'm trying to think of how to have you approach some of that, because it's like some of your own emotional stuff that's like created a pattern in you that's not really something I can like deprogram or clear out. You know, I can make you aware of it, but then you're going to need to process it and work on it yourself. Anyway, let me work on this and see what comes. There's still some pain programming in there. Okay, now there's a picture that you put in your own second chakra. And it's kind of like, it's partly from your past lives and partly from this lifetime. And it's around illegitimacy, quote unquote, you know, the societal term illegitimacy. And it's a picture that you have in your second chakra that says, I'm going to have to be punished and punished over and over again for this until it becomes so painful that I can't ever possibly repeat that mistake again. It's like the belief that we have to be punished, almost whipped to death for our sins, instead of believing that we can transcend a pattern or release our judgments about it or forgive or whatever. You know, it doesn't embrace those as possibilities. It only embraces the possibility of, I'm going to have to suffer through this one until I finally suffered enough that I can make it over. And one of the reasons for a lot of the fear you carry in your body in this lifetime is that belief is kind of all-encompassing. Like anything that I haven't paid for yet, I'm going to have to suffer through over and over again until I've finally suffered enough that I can be redeemed. And it's not like something I think you consciously still want to believe in, but it's something that's kind of ingrained, you know. So what I'd like you to do with that is just close your eyes for a moment. And I'd like you to ask, as I'm talking about this, for a picture or a symbol to represent this belief that, okay, the first one is, I can't be allowed any kind of sexual happiness. I can't be allowed sexual relationship, happiness and fulfillment until I've paid for all the lifetimes of illegitimacy and kind of like quote unquote sinning sexually. And I put it in quotes because it's a belief that you've sinned, not that you have. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay, so you need a picture or a symbol that you can use to represent that belief. And then I'd like you to imagine having a red stamp that says officially canceled. And stamp it several times, and each time you do, really put a lot of emotional emphasis into that word, officially canceled. I want this gone. It's officially canceled. Either out loud or silently. Just every time you stamp it, say the words officially canceled with really emphatically, you know, to yourself. And then I'd like you to tear the picture in two and burn it in a violet flame. is in your third chakra. And so if you keep your eyes closed, and as I'm talking about it, just allow a picture or a symbol to kind of come to you to represent this one. And this one is it's a belief about the karmic way. And it basically says, I have to hurry up and suffer enough for this, so I won't do it again and keep creating more karma. I mean, basically what it's saying is, I'm so afraid this is going to keep happening over and over again, so I've got to hurry up and really suffer it totally so I can make sure there's finally enough pain that it'll remind me not to do it again. I get the image of you like handing somebody a whip and saying, please. Will that work for you, that image, or did you already have one?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, good. Okay, well, go on and just cancel that one a few times, and then tear it up and burn it in a violet flame. And this time it needs some electric blue in the flame also. So mostly violet, but with some electric blue thrown in.
I felt that.
Okay, now the next one is in your heart area. Just see this. And this one is kind of like, it's not exactly this, but it's similar to the pattern. Like when children learn that when they're sick, they get attention. It's kind of like, I don't have a right to receive nurturing and love unless I'm hurting. And that's a picture in your heart chakra. And again, you need a picture or a symbol for that belief. Do you have one? Mm-hmm. And then the same process of, canceling it a few times, tearing it up and burning it in a violet flame. And the next one, I know these sound similar, but they are actually, what these are is like the programming I was taking out from your mother and your mother-in-law. These are actually self-programming pictures. They're like beliefs that you held to the point that they actually were like programming yourself in this way. And the last one is in the heart chakra, in the area where the soul anchors into the body. And again, you need a picture or a symbol for this. And it's like, my soul has a black mark on it. And I can never be returned to God until I have, what can I say, it's like suffered enough and had enough pain that I can finally be redeemed again. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, it's a little different than that. It's actually like, it's similar, but it's like, I can't ever return home, I can't ever return to God until I've fully suffered and paid for all of my wrongdoings, for all my lives. And it's very Christian-like. It's like for every evil thought, every evil deed, and all this stuff that I have to pay back before I can ever receive anything good again, or connect with God again.
The thing I fight the most, I think.
know when you have a picture for that.
Okay.
And then same thing, just canceling it several times, tearing it up and burning it. Violet flame. Need some electric glue in that one too. Okay, and what I'm seeing, Cindy, is that right underneath that belief, and there are two anchor points in the heart where the soul actually anchors itself into the physical plane. And what I'm seeing is that in the right anchor point, there is like a black spot on the soul. But it's not from anything you've done wrong. It's actually from sexual abuse in this lifetime and others. And it's like there's a thing, even, God, it's really amazing what I've seen at times. There's a thing where even without being raped or something like that, where if someone like repeatedly is in a sexual situation that's just coming from lust without any kind of soul acknowledgement and love connection involved, that it actually starts to like literally eat a hole in the soul. Well, when there's rape and that kind of a situation and sexual abuse, I mean, it's much more intense. It's almost like a little explosion happening in the soul, and eventually it can create a black hole in there. And it like ends up connecting you to like dark forces, you know. Well, don't feel bad. I mean, I went through the same thing with myself. I mean, I found this in myself quite some time ago and had to heal it myself because there's nobody else around who knew anything about what I was talking about when I saw it. So that's what I'm seeing, and it is in your soul area. It's not a personality issue at all. But when we have those things going on a soul level, it defies our lives to ever get fully well, you know? And what I'd like to do is it's going to take me a few minutes on this. It's like I have to send like a rod of light, and I'm doing it as I'm talking about it, kind of out through this black hole to the other side, and use it as a magnet to collect like all the parts of you that have gotten kind of like exploded out there in time and space to create this black hole. And then when those fragments are gathered, we kind of like pull it back through, and it seals that black hole, but I have to erase the pain first. So I'm just going to be doing this for a few minutes. So I'm not ignoring you or anything. It's just, okay? And as I'm doing this, one thing that could actually really help is if you would just kind of like imagine the light from the sun shining right through your chest, right into your heart chakra and into your soul anchors. Just hold that image, and as you do, just making the affirmation, I am a being of light. And then there's one other thing. I'm sorry, I'll have you go back to doing this in just a moment. But there is a contract in there too. And it's like allowing some beings of the dark side to punish you so that you can finally be redeemed. So it's like making an alliance with the devil in a sense. That if you torment me and punish me enough, then I can finally beg for mercy, you know. And so what I'd like you to do is just see a contract. And you can just see it between yourself and, say, the dark forces. And this is a contract to have them punish you so that you can finally feel deserving of mercy and redemption. Were you brought up in a real Christian family?
No.
These are just, I mean, they're so Christian type of pictures, you know. Well, it looks like your mother had a lot of fear of God, too. Okay, good. Now, if you can go back to holding that sunlight in and the affirmation, that's great, because I was finally able to break through now. Good. Funny, I just was getting the analogy that what I'm doing right now and the healing in there is kind of like the phrase in the Bible that says, "And seal the door where evil dwells." It's like when people get abused enough, sometimes it like shatters something in their soul and like sends them right through that etheric gateway, you know? It's kind of what that black hole is. Okay, so we got it pulled back through. But I have to do a healing on some of those pieces that were out. It's funny, I haven't usually seen this happen with it. It's like some of the pieces that came back through brought back like the tremors from the trauma. How's that feeling in your heart chakra area right now?
I just feel a lot lighter. It was almost burning.
Yeah.
It felt real heavy, like I just smoked 10 cigarettes.
Yeah. It looks a lot different. It's interesting. A lot of times when people have this kind of damage, they'll tend to smoke cigarettes, and it's literally like every cigarette, the cigarette kind of matches the vibration of what's going in there, but it also kind of keeps eating away at it. It does a lot of, when you have that kind of thing already, especially, it actually kind of adds to the damage, and yet it's like there's almost like a natural addictive tendency. Do you know what I mean? It's like something eating away at you, and then the cigarettes kind of like enforce that in some way, and yet I think the reason that people do it is on somewhat level to try and soothe it. But it's one of those things where the soothing of it actually adds to the problem. You know.
I have a very addictive personality.
Yeah, I would imagine. Well, it's really important to start understanding where that kind of thing comes from. And it's like when you start understanding it and letting go of all the judgments on it and saying, well, you know, if I've had this kind of soul damage and those kinds of feelings of not good enough and this kind of stuff, of course you're constantly going to be trying to do something to soothe that feeling, because that's a miserable thing to try and live with, you know. And that's where it really comes from. And those addictive things, it's like we're trying to give ourselves, it's like there's cigarettes, sometimes they're very related to people like not getting enough of the mother's milk, you know, but then we don't really believe we deserve it, even though we're trying to satisfy something in that need. It's kind of complicated in a way. Okay. Now what you know, it's funny, we're kind of jumping around, but it's like one thing is just automatically leading into another. So I hope I'm sticking enough to what you want to work on. If it feels like I'm not, you got to tell me and I'll try to jump back. But what I'm doing is kind of following a thing that's being kind of presented right now. So is this all okay?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, we're getting to some pretty deep things, and we've gotten away from talking directly about the mother-in-law, but we are talking about a source of what draws those things to you, you know, a very deep source. And the next thing I'm being told to do is work some on the lower brain area in the back of the head, in the area of the genetic programming. And what I'm seeing is just in the area of your genetics, it's like I can't even see you there. There's so much foreign energy in your genetic area, a lot of your mother's fear, just a tremendous amount of your mother's fear in that area. And I see that going down into the neck area too, like shock almost, like almost shock feelings.